Okay, so I'm just gonna go right in there and I'm just gonna ask, do you feel that in our generation now that we take mental health seriously?
No.
I think we're learning to take it seriously because we're starting to see that there's a lot of people around us, especially young people, who are
dealing with it
right. And who are actually being more open with it and saying that they have anxiety or that they're depressed or, you know, giving out, you know, like their cries on social media or whatever forum that they have to actually air it out and say, I am struggling with this and I have this and I need help.
Yeah.
I think nowadays in this generation we're being more open with it. However, are we handling it better? I think there's room for
improvement. No,
I don't even know what it means to actually take it seriously. Do you know what I mean? Like, even like as you just said, the whole putting it on social media. I don't know, for me, I still feel a bit weary about that. Is there other ways to do that, or is social media the right way to do that?
I think some people see social media as like their diary. You know, you've got Tumblr, you've got Twitter, and sometimes they're just writing, not knowing who's gonna see it, who's gonna read it, and it's just like an outlet, just a way for them to deal with it.
I think when you're really, I mean, like you've had a really bad day or you're in a really dark space or whatever, you know, often you'll get your friends checking in on you saying, oh, yo, where have you been? I haven't seen you for ages. Oh, you've been really quiet.
But
so
some people don't have friends and some people don't have that physical support system. And on the flip side, I feel like sometimes social media can be the source as to why we have such negative, you know, impressions of ourselves.
I think it definitely has some kind of impact in terms of how people feel about themselves. Because obviously, it's opened a whole new world of different looks, different people, different trends.
You know, and they always say comparison is a thief, thief of joy. Thief of joy. So imagine just constantly being surrounded by social media and, you know, the world's ideal of perfection. That can drive people
but then why do we act like we have no control over this? That's my thing, because it's like, I just feel like, okay, if something is making you feel a certain way, why do we feel like we can't control that? You just come off it. Take it from your phone.
But you're speaking, I think, from a very strong mindset.
Do you know what? And I kind of, in a way, I disagree in the sense that it's not just to do with social media. Okay, there's social media, but then there's friends who are also on social media and they'll still be bringing the news back to you. And you can switch on your phone, but switch off your phone. But when you switch it back on, then what? You still have to deal with it. There's no running away with it.
But taking away social media from everything, I mean, people are dealing with mental health issues in real life, and they're feeling depressed and they're feeling low and anxious about whatever's going through in their day-to-day. What do you think is the best way to tackle that? do you feel like seeing your doctor is the best way, speaking out to your friends, social media? Like, I've always been a bit anti pills and taking antidepressants and medication. I'm not sure why, but it just doesn't sit well with me. But these are the solutions to dealing with this. Like, how would you?
I think definitely talking to someone about it, because I think that's definitely something that has to happen. Keeping it to yourself and fighting the battle on your own can be really, really, like, it can make it worse and it can be really scary.
Do you think people are scared because there's a stigma behind mental health?
I think from coming from a Black Afro-Caribbean background, like growing up, mental health was always associated with some sort of demon.
Or
spiritual thing.
Some spiritual
they'll
thing.
Just tell you to pray.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm a very spiritual person, but I also believe in finding solutions. And I don't think flicking holy water and all sorts of ketchup and Ribena is gonna solve.
You gotta accept the fact that it could be a condition or it's something wrong.
Go to a doctor. Like, if your child or someone around you is suffering from depression and they're telling you this, like, taking them to pastor and flicking all sorts. I feel like there can be a spiritual solution, but then there can also be a physical solution. And seek, and for that reason alone, you should seek help.
But do you think that it comes from a place of where they don't have the knowledge or the understanding? So, you know, when you don't understand something, you kind of
it is a lack of education. Definitely. I just think, like what you were saying, I think there's a balance. I think sometimes it can be a spiritual situation. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes, you know, say a prayer that could actually help. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer that, yes, go to the doctors, find out what's going on. We're spiritual beings, and also your mental health is actually really important. And I just kind of feel like people play that down, like it's just like, oh no, it's fine, it's whatever. No, actually you do need to look after yourself, and part of that is your mental health. So of course, get help and all of that stuff. The Bridge Media presents Heels Off Live. For the first time ever, the ladies are taking their sofa discussions out of the studio and into a live audience, giving you the chance to join in on the debate. On Sunday, the 14th of August at 6 p.m. at Queen of Hoxton, London. Get your tickets now from eventbrite.co.uk and heelsoffshow.co.uk. Heels Off Live, you don't want to miss it. Clearly, we don't have all the answers, so that's why today joining us, we have a psychotherapist called Deborah, and she's going to chill with us and she's going to answer some of these questions so we can leave with some clarity.
Amazing.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Welcome. Sit with us.
Thank you.
This
is the best side.
It is. It actually is the best side.
Sure.
So I'm going to get right into it, to be honest. Mental health is a really big topic, and it's probably on everyone's mind. And I feel like a lot of us just don't know how to best support someone who will be struggling through any mental health issues or illnesses. So what would you advise the best way we could support someone?
So there are a few things you can do, some simple, some a little more difficult. So you could start with sort of researching what might be going on for them. Ask them questions, really listen, talk to them, be patient with them as well. That's one thing. People often jump to conclusions, make assumptions, think they understand. You can also be really practical as well. So things like going with them to appointments if they're going to see their GP. Some people actually calm down just by having somebody in the waiting room, for example. You don't even have to go into the appointment with them, but just knowing that there's somebody there that's waiting for them when they leave, if they're distressed or something like that, really, really helpful. Things like, do you need some cooking done? Do you need some clothes washed? Because some people just can't even get out of bed. They don't want to go to work, they can't do anything. So practical things like that are helpful. And then most importantly, really, really look after yourself while you're helping them. You'd be so surprised how many people I see who have become unwell because they're trying to support somebody else. They have stopped, especially if it's like a loved one, someone you really care about, they've stopped taking care of themselves, and inadvertently they've actually made themselves unwell as well. So that's really, before you're going to help somebody else, you need to make sure you're in a good place. Don't take on more than you can manage as well. If you can't manage it, you need to be asking for some extra support for them.
I want to ask, how do you notice the signs early on?
That's what I was going to ask,
So again, as I said before, the signs are things that most of us have dealt with at some point. So if you go and start Googling now, a lot of people will be like, oh my God, I'm sick, you know. So they vary, they really do vary. And it depends on what you're dealing with. So for example, some people have extreme anger issues, but you're looking at that kind of volatile anger, that kind of, this doesn't seem to make sense on balance with what's going on here. So that could be one case, for example. But then you might have a friend or a parent, or many of us are Africans, who are always angry. You know, they're the smallest thing. So it very much is dependent on, you know, you need to look at all those things. As you said, you need to be looking at the culture, where you're, what background you're coming from. You also need to be looking for things like, are people having panic attacks all the time? They're constantly, you know, they're in the supermarket and they're panicking and they're breaking down and they just can't cope, and it's overwhelming because there's too many people. You'd be looking for things like people talking about self-harming, talking about suicide a lot, low mood, but in the extreme sense. So not just, I'm having a bad day, it's raining outside, I can't be asked. That kind of, I can't seem to shake this doesn't seem to want to go. But the most important thing I'd say is, bear in mind it's all relative. So if you've got a friend who is normally quite an extrovert, quite outgoing, and all of a sudden they become really reclusive, really quiet, don't want to talk to anyone, you'd be thinking,
So a lot of people are using social media as a way to, you know, either just say that they're going to kill themselves or as a cry for help. As a professional, how do you see social media and mental health interlocking, and is there a way for it to help, or is it kind of making it worse?
Yeah. So in terms of sort of the effects of social media on your mental health, it's an interesting one for me, because mental health issues were here long before social media ever even sort of, came to force. And if social media ever dies out, God forbid, it will still be here. So it can help and hinder. So there's studies in America that have shown that people are actually more anxious when they can't get on their social media. So we're talking things like, when you're on the train, I haven't got any reception, there's no Wi-Fi, my days, and it's real. People get genuinely anxious, and we laugh about it, but it's real. People are like,
missing out.
Missing out or not communicating
what is going
with someone.
on? There's also been studies that have shown that, and this always, makes me laugh, that people who are really avid users of social media are unhappier than other people. But what's interesting, it is a bit of a chicken and the egg. So were they already unhappy, or is it actually social media that's causing the unhappiness? You can't really tell. But people who use Twitter a lot often say that they feel less successful or less by comparison, and it's very hard not to make that comparison straight away. They feel like they're not as educated. Everyone else seems to be doing really well. And it's interesting that you mentioned this fear of missing out, because that's actually a thing now. This new phenomenon where people actually genuinely become anxious because they think everyone else is having fun without them. Everyone else seems to be at this party that they've missed.
Do you know what? I actually get that. No, honestly, I actually get that, and it's like, it's weird because it's been more of recent that I've, I don't know if I'm getting older or whatever, but I'm spending more time at home. Like,
it's
I'm
like you
working,
can't keep up.
and I just want to stay at home, and then I'll just go on Instagram. And then I'll be seeing this event, that event, and I'll look at it, I'm like, wow, no one even asked me to come. I'm thinking to myself, okay, are they not asking me because I always say no? Or they didn't even think that I would wanna be there. And it's got to the point where I don't actually go on Snapchat when I'm having a night in.
So in terms of being able to get yourself out of that mental space where you're in a really low mood, is it very hard? Because when I'm in a low mood, I seem to somehow kind of pick myself back up again by myself. Is that more possible than not, or is it a situation where there's actually just a lot of people who do need someone to help them get through it?
It's a difficult one. So some people, as you say, are equipped in themselves to get themselves out of the funk if they feel down and But I would always say, if you can't, seek help. Seek help, but don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. Seek help before things go so bad that you're in a place that you don't know how to come out of it. Like you said, you're starting to think about taking your own life. So this is your GP. It's interesting, people go to their GP for all sorts, So if something was hurting them on a part of their body that was the most embarrassing, they go, but they don't want to talk about their mental health. It's so interesting. Go to your GP. Your GP's known you for a long time. They can signpost you to free services, whether it's therapy, if you're worried about taking pills, explain that to them and say you need to talk to somebody. Loads and loads of charities, if you put in the mental health helpline, if you put in Mind, for example, and a lot of employers actually have an employee assistance program, where you can go and talk to somebody again for free. And then you can seek a private therapist if you really want that, privacy and no one to know you. Go and talk to a private therapist, go and see a counsellor, just talk to somebody. At worst, talk to your friends. Just get the dialogue going, just begin, start talking.
Thank you guys so much for watching Heels Off. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and don't forget to hashtag Heels Off.
Women know what they're doing, but this is just my opinion. Generally speaking, they deceive themselves.
So hypothetically, females can get into casual sex situations and not feel away.
I don't believe that.
Yes.
I feel like me sleeping around with different guys, it's devaluing me.